Good afternoon. My name is Lene Palmisano, and I'm the Chair of Committee of the Whole. I'm going to call to order our regular committee meeting for Tuesday, April 25th. At this time, clerk, please call the roll to verify a quorum.
Councilmember Payne.
Present.
Wansley.
Present.
Rainville.
Present.
Vitaw.
Present.
Ellison.
Here.
Osmond is absent. Goodman.
Present.
President Jenkins.
Present.
Chugtai.
Present.
Koski.
Present.
Johnson.
Present.
Vice Chair Chavez.
Present.
Chair Palmisano.
Present.
We have 12 members present.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. I did hear from Councilmember Osmond, and he's handling some constituent needs in his ward after last night's fire at the mosque. So we wish him well in that. We have 2 items on the published agenda today, in addition to our reports of committees that have met this cycle. Hang on. This doesn't seem to match what we've got in front of us. Item number 1 is our regular report on contract awards and amendments that have been approved over the last couple weeks by the ad hoc work group established for American Rescue Plan Act dollars. Staff, as usual, doesn't have a presentation for this item, but is on hand if there are any questions from my colleagues. Are there any questions for staff? Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Palmisano. More so of a comment. I just wanted to take the opportunity to shout out Touch Outreach. Last month, kudos to Councilmember Chavez for organizing a community meeting on public safety on the public transit line where the Touch team was there. At that meeting, over 75 residents spoke about how they wanted more of a presence from these unarmed responders on trains and buses because they do feel like they help create a safer environment for everyone. And many residents call for increased funding to support this kind of work. So I was super glad to see this contract be expanded for Touch, as well as other violence prevention and intervention services. So I just wanted to shout out our staff for continuing their expansion and pursuit of that work, as well as Councilmember Chavez for creating the opportunities for our residents' needs to be met through our unarmed safety responders. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, I'll direct the clerk to file that report. Our next item is part of our Pattern and Practices Subcommittee. So as such, I'll turn the meeting over to President Jenkins, who helps that subcommittee chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice President, and I would like to invite our City Attorney Anderson to provide us with a brief level set of where we are in the MDHR settlement process and how that informs the discussion on the item, which is City Attorney Anderson.
Thank you, Council President, Council members. I'll just give you a brief update on what is going on in the settlement process between the Minnesota Department of Human Rights and the City of Minneapolis. As you know, several weeks back, I did a longer presentation to you about what was in the settlement agreement and what the process would be from there. So I'll kind of pick it up from there. After Council's approval of the settlement agreement, the agreement was fully executed by the parties, and as I described to you at that point in time, the Human Rights Department filed a new lawsuit with a new complaint, again, all old allegations, but a new complaint along with the settlement agreement and a joint motion from both parties for the court to enter the settlement agreement as an order. Since that time, we have now gotten a judicial assignment. It's Judge Karen Yanish, who is the same judge that was presiding over the action from back in 2021 with the temporary restraining order. So the parties had actually asked for the temporary restraining order action and this new action to be combined because they are very connected with each other, and the settlement agreement will actually settle that temporary restraining order action. So it's now all been consolidated and assigned to Judge Yanish. The parties have asked for a scheduling conference, and we're just awaiting scheduling at this point in time. As we wait for the court process, we're working on a number of things, and I just wanted to highlight a few kind of upcoming deadlines. Again, all of these deadlines in the settlement agreement are hinged off of that date of court approval, which at this point in time, we don't know what that date will be. But some near-term deadlines that we've been working really hard on. First deadline that comes up in the settlement agreement is that 14 days after the effective date, again, the date of the court approves the settlement agreement, we must publish an RFP for the independent evaluator. We're very, very far down the road on that. We've got the RFP drafted and approved, and so that will be ready to go in a timely way. A few other short-term deadlines that will come up, 60 days from the effective date, we must create and staff implementation units within the MPD and the city with the skills and abilities necessary to facilitate implementation and compliance with the agreement. I know MPD has done a lot of work in standing up that implementation unit. My office has done a lot of work in standing up my office's implementation unit. 60 days from the effective date, MPD must establish a web page which is available in multiple languages to receive community comments about policies and practices. Work on that webpage is already underway. And then the last short-term deadline, 60 days from the effective date, MPD will hold at least 3 public engagement sessions on, remember those topics, the use of force policy, the non-discrimination in policing policy, stop searches and arrests, and then mission, vision, values. So that's a near-term deadline. I know MPD and my office are working hard on, what that community engagement process will look like. But we will be, the I guess good thing about having all of this, the settlement agreement. We know what the contents are even before it's approved by the court. We've got the ability to kind of get going on this work, and we're doing that. So that's the update date. Obviously, not a huge update, and we will obviously, once we actually get more information from the court about timeline, process, et cetera, I can certainly report back.
Thank you, City Attorney Anderson. And I do want to just acknowledge this subcommittee's co-chair, Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to speak, thank you for the update, City Attorney Anderson. Just wanted to speak really quickly on the staff directive that we have in front of us. And I wanted to speak in favor of it. I think that, it's not in front of us. Okay, cool.
I'm sorry, Madam President, the staff direction hasn't been brought forward yet, so we need to put that in front of us before we speak to it.
Then I will pause.
Thank you, Co-Chair Ellison. Councilmember Koski. I'm sorry, Councilmember Wansley. I thought you were in queue for the last item. Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Council President Jenkins. In keeping in mind with what just Clerk Carl just shared, I would like for us to consider the legislative directive that is currently on our Parents in Practice Subcommittee and move approval for that.
Second.
So we have a legislative directive brought forth by Councilmember Wansley. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Ellison. Councilmember Ellison?
Yep. Thank you. Just wanted to speak in favor of the staff direction. I think there are a lot of things when it comes to the budget that we are used to taking up during the budget season. Certainly, we're used to taking up things like the levy and all that, but this is an item that we are not used to taking up. This is going to be unique this year, and I think that we need to prepare ourselves as ahead of time as possible. I've seen some of the communication between Councilmember Wansley's office and MPD. It sounds like there's not huge resistance or conflict in being able to provide this information. And again, you know, nobody wants to see us shortchanging any department, but we also don't want to see this settlement agreement get used as sort of like a reason to sort of run wild either. I think an analysis well ahead of time can really support us in understanding what we're dealing with, what the cost is going to be for residents long term, and help us make budget decisions as we head into budget season in the fall. I think the earlier we get this information in front of us, the better. Again, this is a unique kind of consideration that we're going to have to make, and I think that's why it's smart for us to get as ahead of it as possible.
Thank you, Councilmember Ellison. And I have a few more people in queue, but I did want to hear from Mr. Harrison from the Budget Office to just help us understand what may be some implications with this legislative directive.
Sure, yes, thank you, Council President. I think as we in the Finance Department and in the Budget Office review this legislative directive as regards the consent decree, the settlement agreement, I think one thing that stands out is that, you know, we're generally speaking always supportive of comprehensive financial analysis. I think that's a question that we're very used to asking about as part of our annual budget process and decisions. We're always trying to make sure that the financial impacts of decisions and what that may mean for the city later are being taken into account as we go through these processes. What I would like to do is make a really strong recommendation to the committee to leverage the city's annual budget process to the greatest extent possible. This is work that staff are going to be working on completing as part of our annual budget process and will be built into their work plans. Unlike a couple of other instances of very important questions that are being asked of staff or have been asked of staff in a public format, I'm thinking specifically of the homeless encampment response and the rent stabilization work, where we also needed to produce some significant and well-founded financial analysis to help council explore these issues. Unlike those, this is a potential question that is absolutely going to be addressed via the annual budget setting process, because the departments who are going to be affected know they're going to need resources in order to respond to the settlement agreement in the coming year. And so we're very assured that all of the departments who are going to be affected by this are going to be considering what their needs are going to be and elevating those needs through the annual budget process. So I just wanted to point that out. Unlike other questions that needed to be very directly asked of staff in order to produce this financial analysis, this is something that staff are already thinking about and preparing to complete as part of the mayor's recommended budget update this coming August. And just another note on the work plan too that's going to be involved and required of staff in order to, I think, produce those recommendations for the mayor to bring forward in his August 15th budget address. We're looking at departments spending a considerable portion of May and June really bringing forward their proposals, connecting with each other, trying to understand the best possible approaches to this work. And I understand that a lot of those approaches are still being determined. Bringing those forward in proposals, and then really adjusting and reviewing and refining those proposals throughout the month of July, so that council, so that via the mayor's budget process, then we have something that's very well formed, something that's been thought through to a much greater degree than I think we would get if we brought something, if we invited staff to try and bring forward something right now. So just those two main considerations. We have a budget process. We're able to leverage that process. I think staff are already planning as part of their work this year to really use that budget process to help answer some of these questions that I've seen in this legislative directive. And my strong recommendation would be for the committee, the council, to utilize that process to the greatest extent possible. Is there anything else I can answer?
Questions for you. So next is Council Members Wansley, Payne, Koski, and Chugtai, starting with Council Member Wansley.
Thank you, Council President. As the author of this legislative directive, I just wanted to first do some level setting and hopefully respond to some of the things that Robert just raised, and I know some of the concerns that Council Vice President has raised in agenda settings that maybe some other colleagues might speak to. But first, many of you are aware I've spoken about this legislative directive for the past several weeks now since we approved the legal settlement. And just want to reiterate the goal of this legislative directive is to give us the information that we need to make informed decisions about the fiscal impacts of this MDHR settlement agreement. I think we all know it's going to take resources to implement the required changes, and we need to be fiscally responsible and make sure that the settlement agreement is not a blank check to MPD. As Robert somewhat highlighted, I do want to note that last year, and we approved this in the beginning of the budget conversations, the budget office actually gave council a presentation that included information for consent decree planning. In that presentation, and if you look, I'm more than happy to send this out in our Teams chat, but in that presentation, it was noted that there will be reserves for $2 million in 2023, $3 million in 2024 set aside for the coming state and federal consent decrees. There was also $8.5 million recommended for public safety change items related to city-initiated reforms. So it seems like we've already approved these recommendations. There was already discussions and decisions with the mayor's office of some figures around what this might cost. So I think this legislative directive goal is to really have this body get clarity on how we came to those numbers. So that's information that should be readily available. And this LD will allow us to acquire that information. I also will highlight, because there was not a lot of discussion amongst this body when budget came forward last year with that presentation, and also I want to highlight the mayor has talked about these figures publicly and in press conferences. I'm still unsure how we came up with these numbers. But now that the city has formally entered into a settlement agreement, I think it's time for the council to get very specific about what changes are being implemented, especially since City Attorney Anderson just laid out a pretty, clear timeline that we're going to be expected to bring implementation teams forward and getting ready to approve our RFPs for our independent evaluator. So we really need to be thinking, how do we finance these provisions in an efficient and fiscally responsible way? I also want to highlight an equally important dynamic. Residents are frustrated by the fact that the city has spent hundreds of millions of taxpayers' dollars on misconduct settlements, PTSD claims, and staffing minimums. That said, we do owe it to our residents to show them that we are taking the cost of the settlement agreement seriously, and that we are going to be enacting these changes in the most cost-efficient, strategic way possible. So this LD is the way to help us get all of that information to do exactly that. Now to circle back to some of the concerns I know Council Vice President raised during agenda setting. And I will know, I don't know what specific items in the LD that you're referring to, but I will specify in our conversations in the agenda setting where there were some questions raised. Specifically, item 4 in this legislative directive, it has a recommendation on how MPD's current operating budget can be adjusted to increase success factors related to settlement agreement compliance. We all are aware that MPD's current $200 million budget is pretty substantial, one of the largest budgets in the city. And I would like us to explore how that can be a main source of funding for any consent decree related implementation costs. It's also widely known that over the past 3 years, again, we've spent hundreds of millions of dollars on, other police misconduct and PTSD, all those things. But that fiscal burden has laid primarily on the shoulders of taxpayers, while MPD's $200 million budget has remained largely intact and untouched. So for these reasons, community members have contacted my office regularly with concerns of how the city can basically stop the financial bleeding that MPD has caused. They do recognize that every $1 million that we pay out in misconduct is $1 million that could have went towards a city service or program. So as the purse holders for the city, our residents are looking to us to stop the financial bleeding that MPD is causing, and finding ways to adapt MPD's existing budget to accommodate these incoming costs around the consent decree and implementation process is one clear way we can do that. In regards to item 5 on the legislative directive that asks for an updated FTE count on MPD officers who are on active duty and regularly scheduled to work. It asks for the number of officers who are out on leave, anticipated recruits in 2023, and expected retirees in 2023, 2024, 2025. Having this information is important because the settlement agreement requires MPD leadership and rank and file officers to undergo a wide range of trainings. I want to recognize these trainings will cost money, and that cost will differ depending on our staffing levels. And training for 800 officers will be more expensive than training for 500 officers. So we should have anticipated numbers, as I know we're all excited to begin implementation of the settlement agreement. And since contracts are going to be coming to this committee pretty soon, I want the council to have some sense of cost associated with staffing levels that we should be anticipating. Also, last, around item number 6, which requests fiscal information related to cross-jurisdictional resources MPD receives from other law enforcement agencies in years 2018 through 2022. So we all know a major component of our public safety work has been supported by external partnerships that have helped to provide services to our residents. And having a more thorough understanding of the cost of these partnerships, especially both pre-George Floyd and post-George Floyd, and what services they are providing will help us get a clearer picture of how we prioritize funds towards the settlement agreement without sacrificing service delivery outcomes for our residents. Lastly, I do want to say thank you to my colleagues who have shared positive feedback and are very excited to collaborate on this further. I want to thank also City Attorney Anderson and MPD leadership, as Councilmember Ellison raised. Staff has not raised any red flag about this. They have all affirmed our office. They can provide every item of information requested in this legislative directive. So our staff is ready to give us this information and get to work with us so we can have this. And I thank them for helping shape this LD that's before you for consideration. And with that, I ask for the council's support for this directive and conclude my comments.
Next in queue is Councilmember Payne.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, as I read through this legislative directive, I just kind of am reflecting back to the mayor's budget address last year in August. And at that time, it was very unclear if we would have a consent decree with the state, if we'd have a court-ordered settlement agreement, would we have a independent monitor or a independent evaluator. You know, we now have kind of a lot more precision around the language of what some of these interventions are supposed to look like. But at that time, we basically had to take a guess at other jurisdictions around how much this might cost to do this. And we weren't sure if we were going to have multiple consent decrees that are competing with each other, that are duplicating the need for resources to meet the needs of these competing consent decrees. While we fast forward today, we know a lot more now, and we don't have to do so much guesswork around what it's going to take to be able to execute this agreement. And I think it would be really helpful for us to have a little more precision than that $2 to $3 million set aside that we presented when we had a lot less knowledge about what was going to be involved in this agreement. And so even hearing that, 14 days from the date of execution, we have to have an RFP published. I'm pretty sure we probably know the dollar figure for the RFP at this point, right? I think the public should know what's involved in that in that RFP for an independent evaluator from the state. We still don't know what the cost is going to be for an independent monitor for the DOJ consent decree. Years ago, the POLAD Foundation had offered up money to fund an early intervention system. I don't think we've ever actually implemented that. I'm curious about what the budget implication is around bringing those outside dollars in to help implement some new infrastructure that we need that might actually meet the needs of our settlement agreement. And so I feel like we actually have the capacity to answer a lot of the questions that we just didn't have the capacity to answer back when the mayor did his budget address last year. And I think us as a body who is responsible for this budget should really have that information. And I know that we do have a budget process, but we are largely left out of that budget process as it currently exists today at this stage of the process. We will be involved in the budget process much further down the line, but I think we have some timelines that are coming up really quickly around implementation. And we're still flying blind when it comes to our understanding of what resources we need and need to consider, especially as it relates to potentially overlapping requirements between the state and the DOJ. And so I'd like to know as much as we can know, at least at the state level. And I'm still, maybe this is a question for our city attorney, I'm not sure if the DOJ is going to be more intensive or less intensive than MDHR's requirements. So there may be actually less of a need for the resources now that we know what we know about the state settlement agreement, which I think we would all agree is pretty strong. If we meet the baseline needs to effectuate the state settlement agreement, that might take off some burden from the federal consent decree, depending on the outcome of that. It's speculative, so maybe I won't ask that question of the city attorney because I won't force you to speculate. But I think we are beyond speculation when it comes to what we need to know for the state settlement agreement, and I think that we as a body who's responsible for appropriating taxpayer dollars should have as much information as we need, because we all know this is actually going to be a multi-year, possibly decade-long set of tasks that we're going to have in front of us. And we didn't know much when we approved the budget last year. We know a whole lot more now, and I think it's time for us to actually put that increased knowledge into our hands when it comes to understanding the budget implications. So I'm going to be supporting this legislative directive, and I would hope that this was a non-controversial set of questions to ask around police accountability.
Thank you, Councilmember Payne. Next in queue is Councilmember Koski.
Thank you, Madam President. Our Budget Director, Robert Harrison, has shared that this information will be very specifically integrated into this year's 2024 supplemental budget process and will be publicly presented through our 2024 supplemental budget process. And as this process is already underway, I'm not supportive of preempting or duplicating that process, as I'm not sure how preempting and disrupting that process will be beneficial to the Patterns and Practice Investigations Subcommittee. Also, while this legislative directive absolutely touches on matters of the Patterns and Practice Investigation Subcommittee, it more so touches on matters of the Budget Committee, and it specifically relates to the City of Minneapolis's budget. So I think addressing it through the Budget Committee's process on the Budget Committee's timeline is also appropriate. I understand that council members want to be fiscally responsible and make fiscally responsible decisions, but we will not be making those decisions until December 2023 here. And through the 2024 supplemental budget process, council members will have this information well in advance, and for those reasons, I will not be supporting this legislative directive, and I urge my fellow council members to do the same.
Thank you, Councilmember. Next in queue is Councilmember Chugtai.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to first start by thanking Councilmember Wansley for so much due diligence that I see reflected in this work. From what's in front of us today, I see the efforts that you and your office made to engage with staff and make sure that you were asking the right set of questions to get the right set of answers to help this body then make really, really thoughtful decisions. And I'm really thankful for you doing that. I held a community meeting in Ward 10 a couple weeks ago now, talking with constituents about the settlement agreement. I believe I'm the only one that's done that so far, and I had a lot of Ward 10 residents and surprisingly like a good chunk of Ward 11 residents that came. And the number one question that I was asked and I felt like I had no real answer to was, okay, I get this. This is good. How much is this going to cost us? And what resources is it going to take to implement these things? You know, I've heard the city say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and it doesn't happen on the timeline because you didn't allocate resources properly to make the thing happen. And that question came from two different places. It was both from, I want to see this really important document be successful, and it came from, I want to know how much it's going to cost my dollars to make this work happen. And I think those are fair questions for residents to be asking us right now. Those are important questions for us to be asking ourselves right now. I appreciate the comments I've heard about going through the city's budget process that's going to come up later this fall and winter. I think I've gone through one budget process like the majority of this council has. And the budget process is the culmination of months of work, right? Like the budget office and the finance department works year round. You are working constantly with departments on keeping track of our money, what we allocated and how it's being spent. But by the time we get a finalized budget document, it is mostly set in stone. In our $1.66 billion budget last year, we moved around $3 million. The budget isn't going to change by the time it's presented to us. And decisions have already been made about where resources are being allocated, and those decisions are made behind closed doors, right? We don't see the thought process that goes into it. We see the finalized product. And then the responsibility of department directors the responsibility of department directors in our budget process, in the departmental presentations process, in the amendments process, is to come to us and defend their budget. And that is not a place for us to be making neutral decisions from. Receiving nonpartisan information that is neutral, that is fact-based, and that isn't making directors or staff think about, if I get this money, someone else isn't going to, or if I give up this money, then what's the impact going to be on my staff, right? That's an unhealthy place for us to be putting our staff in the position of. We need to be in the position to objectively look at how much the implementation of this consent decree is going to cost, both in terms of dollars and staff, and start to think about what that's going to look like now, so that by the time we get to a proposed budget, by the time we get to amendments, by the time we get to adopting the budget, we have had a lot of time to understand the information, to figure out where the resources are going to get allocated, and to do that work thoughtfully instead of at the 11th hour. That's why I'm going to be supporting this item, and again, really thankful to especially the city attorney's office and MPD for working really closely with the author, with Councilmember Wansley on making this a really thoughtful document.
Thank you, Councilmember Chuck Tai. Next in queue is Councilmember Wansley on her second speech on this item.
Thank you, Council President. Also, just want to thank Council Member Chuck Tai. You shared a lot of sentiments that I wanted to raise around the budget process and why it makes sense for us in this committee that we have created to do the follow-up work around specifically our legal settlements in the consent decree, for us to get the information in a timely manner versus waiting until the end of the year for us to make decisions that largely will already be made. And I will name is being made. We already approved a budget just last year, 2023, where there was already consent decree planning happening. We're putting funds in reserves, so we're already, let me say, the mayor's office, the executive side, has been doing that work. It's time for us to also be able to provide clarity to our constituents, especially if we're going to be doing similar things of hosting consent decree meetings and answering this very, important question of how are taxpayers going to fund the implementation of the settlement agreement so it could be successful, but do so in an efficient and responsible way. So it makes sense for us to be able to get that information as early as possible. There's nothing wrong with getting information early, especially when our staff, and I want to emphasize that, staff that has been a part of these conversations that have helped shape this legislative department, reiterating MPD leadership and the city attorney's office, have all said they can provide this information. So there's no issue around staff. We already have apparently budget allocations around this. I'm assuming staff has, information of how they got to those figures. So that information should be readily available. So all of this information, staff is ready to come to the table, come to council and present to help us be able to make the best informed decisions before these RFPs and contracts come forward to us for consideration. So I just wanted to highlight that. There is no problem. Staff is like, let's go. Now is the decision lie at the feet of council of like, are we ready to meet them there? So I just want to highlight that, and thank you, Councilmember, again, Chuck Ty, for emphasizing how budget would not necessarily be the best place to just host this conversation when we can get this information really soon, and staff are really excited to provide that information.
We just had staff give us a recommendation to use our process, but I'm going to invite Mr. Harrison again.
Yep, yeah.
You seem to have more comments.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to make sure that there's no question on the matter. The budget process is a process by which staff are really engaged in trying to plan and prepare for the coming year. We know there are costs already this year for compliance with the settlement agreement, and I think we're seeing that information come forward. We had a plan last year for how we were going to handle those costs, and that was integrated into 2023 in a more specific way. And then in 2024, just in our general financial planning, making sure that we had some approximate resources available. And so I want to be clear that, we do know some of those. We know a lot of this is in development right now. And it's by no means staff's proposal that that information not be available to the committee and the subcommittee just as part of that work. I think the key point that I'm just trying to make on behalf of the process and from what I've seen from the budget office is that concerted effort to get those specific costs together in a way that is meaningful, cohesive, that is fully considered for this committee and for any part of the city's annual budget setting process is a significant effort. And so asking staff to really accelerate their work plans to try and pull together these costs ahead of that August 15th date, to me feels like a stretch, and that's why I recommend for those costs for future years, allowing staff to use the full budget process essentially to pull that together. And then, perhaps the committee can follow along with that process, ask information as the consent decree work continues, and maybe solicit information from staff when we get to the mayor's budget recommendation. That would be an easy place for staff to, I think, pull together those requests for additional funding for future years. But again, it's a significant effort. I can't really speak on behalf of those other departments, but from what I have seen in the budget offices, that takes a lot of time for staff to pull these things together. And so we're talking about the city attorney's office, we're talking about MPD, we're talking about multiple departments that are going to be affected by the need to pull together this comprehensive analysis and be responsive to it. I really just want to speak to the benefit of using as much time as we have this year without delaying the work of council or this subcommittee, or without stopping the subcommittee from getting good information from staff about what is happening right now. I'd just like to speak to the benefit of giving staff that full budget calendar, essentially, to pull this information together. And so we wouldn't really be talking about having information to council by December. We'd talk about having final decisions and recommendations for inclusion in the mayor's recommended budget by August 15th. And that's going to include work by all of the affected departments that are going to be responding to the consent decree to make sure that those planned costs for 2024 are built out. And in the meantime, there's not much that would preclude this committee from getting updates on what we currently have in the budget and what we are currently seeing as part of our settlement agreement response. I think those are very separate questions. And I just want to point that out. When I read this legislative directive and I see the request for comprehensive financial information and budget information for coming year, that's the part that I see as requiring additional staff effort and significant time, and that's my recommendation, is to use the annual budget process to pull that information forward. In the meantime, there's nothing that stops this committee from seeking additional updates this year on information that we do already know and can report back on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. And yeah, I mean, I think if staff has data that they are willing to share, I'm not sure why they are not sharing it with you, council member. So, and we can ask them to do that. Hello.
Can I go?
Yes, Councilmember Chavez, please.
Council President Jenkins, I'll answer your question and make my statement. Sometimes when some of us ask questions, we don't get those answers. That's the reason.
But she just
We are a
said
legislative
that they
body.
are
I don't know
willing
why
to give
we
her
always
the answer,
forget that we are a
sir.
legislative body. This is work that we get to do. Asking for police accountability and how much taxpayers will have to pay is not disruptive. It's the right thing to do. So I just want to thank Councilmember Wansley for always bringing these conversations to light and not just praying and hoping that this work is going to get done. I have done that in the past, and that's how work gets killed here. Our constituents deserve answers. It's clear that Councilmember Wansley, throughout this whole entire process, anytime she brings legislative directives forward, her work is intended to get killed, whether it's in agenda setting, behind closed doors, or right now. And it's frustrating to see that happen in full front in the public. This should not be controversial. I don't know why people are always trying to stop her work. People can vote no. Then just explain to your constituents why you're going to vote no.
Thank you, sir. Please address the council.
Council President Deshani Dai, CFO. You're absolutely correct. We do need transparency. We do have budget numbers that's already part of the 2023 and 2024 budget as proposed. We can certainly give that information. Robert has clearly stated that getting the information for what's already in the budget is not a problem. We could certainly do that. What's challenging is the projection for future years that's included in the legislative directive. The budget office works very hard with all departments to put together a budget proposal. And it takes months to put that together. So what you're asking the budget division to do is create a supplemental process just for consent decree work. And that's extremely challenging given how many staff work in the budget office. So what he's asking is, we'll provide you what we already have, but please include any future projections through the budget process to eliminate that dual process that the budget office would need to do to make this legislative directive effective. If it will be helpful, we could certainly have a special presentation as part of the regular budget process, just to focus on the consent decree work and the costs included in the budget. If that's helpful, that's just a suggestion on my part. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dye. And then can you just answer when, and I think Mr. Harrison alluded to this, but the mayor's proposed budget will be available August 15th?
I believe the date is August 15th. I cannot remember where that lands on the calendar this year, but that's typically the date that we target to get it out, and we have a requirement to have the budget out on or before that date.
So well before December?
Well before December, and this council will have opportunity via the budget committee's process this year also to ask for updates from departments. I believe we have a date in July where departments will be coming forward and bringing forward progress on the new budget items that they received this past year, and then departments will also be coming back to present on their proposed budget, as alluded to in September and October of this year as well. Just wanted to highlight a couple of those.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Next in queue is Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a few questions. One was around the budget projections that we have so far. The mayor was attempting to kind of put together this biennial model that we're now sort of figuring out what that means. And I know that we put together these budget projections around the consent decree back when we had very limited information. We'd had nothing signed. We couldn't even really discuss things publicly. Is it reasonable to assume that we now have more information, and have there been changes to how much we've spent, what we're spending it on? That clarity has come into focus, right, since we've had those initial projections?
Yes, President Jenkins, Councilmember Ellison, I think that is accurate to state. When we included these numbers in the budget, we had the limited information that is available. Since then, the settlement agreement has been signed, and we're seeing actual concrete costs as a result of that agreement. And I think to reference back to a couple of points, one of the challenges is just, what are those future costs now as we're really wading into this information, trying to understand the impacts on the city and trying to understand, I think, some of the decision points that are going to be coming up through too as part of this process for the executive and for the legislative branches of the city. Where are these decision points going to be coming up? I think we'll see those affecting where we'll see those affecting the amount of resources that are going to be needed to respond to this settlement agreement.
Thank you. And I would just add that I do think that that the reason it's worthwhile for us to be especially transparent about, and I know that the budget process is a transparent process, but the reason I'm passionate about that we be especially transparent about this process is because it's a unique situation, and I do think that it comes with unique interest from the public, and so and I think that's why I'm supporting the staff direction, and I think that if colleagues have amendments, we're welcome to sort of, vote on those amendments or discuss those amendments, but I do think that it's not just a matter of whether council members can privately get information from staff. I don't think that that's the discussion that we're having here. I think it's about how we're being transparent with the public on an issue that is of particular interest to the public. So that's all. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilmember Ellison, and next in queue is Councilmember Payne.
Thank you, Madam President. I think actually Councilmember Ellison spoke to some of the comments I wanted to share, but I actually did want to directly address your question of if staff is so readily willing to share this information, why not just get it directly from them? To Councilmember Chavez's point, that's not true for all of us on this body. Some of us do send emails requesting information and we don't get it from staff. Sometimes staff feel unsure of whether or not they're authorized to share that information with us. And so we are going through some growing pains of what it means to be under this new government structure, both for us on the dais, but also for our day-to-day staff who are not entirely sure what's appropriate and inappropriate for them to do. And I think that this legislative directive, as a framework, not just the specific one before us today, but as a framework, is helping to clarify how we interface with staff and share information between the executive and legislative branch. And I think that's really important. And then the second comment I wanted to make is, I think that we really need to rethink what our budget process is. It's a very mature process that has existed for a very long time under an old government structure in which the mayor's sole authority used to be over the police department and over the recommended budget. That was the primary lever of the mayor's office to influence the direction of this institution. That's no longer the case. And so I think this prioritization of the mayor's recommendation, although is specified in the city charter, so there are some charter requirements around our budget process, but I think our role in this process needs to be reevaluated given the shift in government structure. So I think we should move forward with this legislative directive, both from the perspective of providing that very clarifying interface between us as decision makers around the budget and the executive branch. And also we should be thinking more deeply about our budget process and what role City Council has to play as we move through that budget cycle.
Thank you, Councilmember Payne, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that we need to reevaluate our budgeting process. However, I am deeply concerned about our staff's capacity, and to be able to do multiple budget processes in 1 year. Councilmember Chugtai.
Thank you, Madam President. I think I think we're in the growing pains part still, and we probably will be for several years to come. I know in our adopted budget for this year, there's money set aside for us to hire a fiscal analyst within the legislative department. And if we were in a place today where we already had that resource, that's who this legislative directive would likely be directed to. And then like the staff member within the legislative department would be able to pull this information together. Unfortunately, that's not the place we're in right now. And so we're doing the best we can with what we have. I want to just clarify a thing I heard earlier. I'm not sure where it came from, but just so we're clear, this legislative directive is not directed towards the budget department. That's not who it's sent to. It's actually sent to the mayor. The mayor decides who it's going to go to. Now, if the budget office or finance and property services or whoever it is that the mayor would then decide to give the directive to were to say, you know, our office doesn't have the capacity. We can't take this project on. Maybe you can, you know, give it to a different person. We don't get to oversee that process. That's entirely administrative. That's entirely within the jurisdiction of the executive branch. And so unfortunately, we don't get to be the arbiters of whether this work comes to the budget office or not. That's the mayor. Should this item pass today, that's a great piece of feedback to bring to the mayor's office to then figure out, you know, where does this go on the priority list, or does it even come to your office, or, you know, should it go to MPD and their finance director, or should it go to the city attorney's office? Those, unfortunately, are choices that are out of our realm of control. So I wanted to make that clarification. I also see there are a number of items on this legislative directive that explicitly wouldn't go to the budget office. They would go to MPD, the city attorney's office, procurement. And so I just want to be really clear about, you know, when we talk about the capacity of staff, we are implying that there are a lot of different staff involved. I understand it can be really difficult to be in the position of having to represent, you know, everyone in the place that you're in, Director, right now. But again, our intention is never to overburden a department. Our intention is to exercise our legislative tools, and then what happens with that once it makes its way to the mayor's office is up to the mayor's office.
Thank you, Councilmember Chugtai. As you pointed out, we have a budget to hire a person to be able to do that. We don't have that person on staff yet. Mr. Harrison.
Yes, President Jenkins, I do just want to be extra clear. You know, the Budget Office recognizes a lot of this work would, you know, very potentially land with the Budget Office, but I think our overall recommendation is really geared toward the number of staff within the departments that are potentially going to be impacted by this. And so, you know, the concern about, you know, our own capacity to support this work, I think is, you know, it's founded, but more broadly, what I'd like to do is speak to the work that departments would need to do to respond to just the forward-looking, that projection element of the legislative directive as it's currently written, because, you know, we're the Budget Office. We're not going to be the subject matter experts on any of this. We're going to be relying on and working with, and departments will be working directly on response to this legislative directive. And so this is going to more impact, I think, the departments that would be asked to respond to this. And that's where, again, I'm making that recommendation. Departments are going to be doing this work. It's going to be more than just one department affected by this. And as directed, or as written in the legislative directive, really are asking for that work to happen on an accelerated timeline, and that's where we're saying, you know, could we please use the process the department's already kind of planned out in order to make that response. Just wanted to offer that clarification. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Harrison. Last person in queue is Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam President, and I appreciate your comments about the concern with staff capacity. That's one that I certainly share as well around this. I appreciate Councilmember Ellison's idea or mentioning around how this should be presented perhaps separately. That's something that, given the concerns around staff capacity, I would be interested in on or after August 15th. I think it makes sense after listening to this discussion for it to go through our typical budget process, but to have that information pulled out then on or after August 15th and have a separate presentation for the council, I think would make a lot of sense. That way it elevates it publicly and there can be a more robust discussion, because I think this information is important information to have. And lastly, I would just share my own personal perspective just in general within the enterprise is that I have not been able to always get information when I go and request it of staff. And there certainly is, I've heard the word said at this meeting a learning curve, and I agree with that. I think it is challenging in any large organization, at least from my perspective, learning to be effective and to ultimately work those levers of influence to get the information you need in building those relationships. And at the previous large organizations I've been a part of, it's been equally hard as well. So I don't think this is unique to City Hall. I think that's part of being involved in a large organization. And what's really essential with that is building relationships. And I do have concerns around how staff directions, when we're not being sensitive to the concerns of staff around capacity, things like that, how that can ultimately harm these relationships and frankly just make it harder to get the information that we need. And that said, to Councilmember Chavez's point, we're also a legislative body. We do have authority around this, so I don't want to say we should never utilize that. I think there are times and places for that, but I think in this case, looking at everything, it makes sense for me not to vote for this staff direction, but to support efforts in getting this information before the committee at or after August 15th. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. Councilmember Koski.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to reiterate that I hear the need to have this information parceled out for as we go through our budget committee process, and I commit to making sure that we are able to do that and elevate that. There's been a lot of discussion about the budget committee's process, and I have shared this year's budget committee process via email with everyone. And although, of course, I am absolutely open to discussions of how we can continue to improve that, I have made some adjustments actually to the budget process this year. I actually only had one council member respond to me afterwards just to discuss the process that I laid out. So I encourage my council members to go back and take a look at that email. It went to both you and your staff, and happy to connect about any questions that you might have as we move forward on that process too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Koski. And seeing there's no further discussion, we do have a motion for a legislative directive with a proper second before us. And I will ask the clerk to call the roll for vote.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Wansley.
Aye.
Rainville.
No.
Vita.
No.
Ellison.
Aye.
Goodman.
No.
President Jenkins.
Nay.
Chugtai.
Aye.
Koski.
Nay.
Johnson.
No.
Vice Chair Chavez.
Aye.
Chair Palmisano.
No.
That's 5 yeas and 7 nays.
And so that recommendation fails. And seeing as we have completed the business on the patterns and practices agenda, I will return the chair to Council Vice President Palmisano.
Thank you, Madam President. Next, we have reports of committees from the standing committees on matters to be considered by the full council this Thursday. We'll begin with Business Inspections, Housing and Zoning. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. There are 21 items that we're bringing forward for approval on Thursday, including a number of items that unfortunately were not discussed in committee that I'm going to note now. So those in your individual wards you might be interested in. Item number 1 is an off-sale liquor license for Underground Leaf and Vine. Item 2 is Alibi Kitchen for an extended hours and sidewalk cafe license. Item 3 is amending our code of ordinances to allow for skateboard ramps or structures. Item number 4 is a bond issuance for Allina Health Systems. Item 5 is denying a variance appeal at 223 40th Street East. Item number 6 is denying a variance and site plan appeal at 2725 University Avenue Southeast. 7 are the liquor license approvals, and 8 are the renewals. And I will note that there are 158 renewals, many obviously all over the city. Item number 9 are the gambling license approvals. 10 is a license settlement conditions for the Gay 90s. Item 11 is an extension of exclusive development rights at 1500 4th Street South. Item number 12 is a really big item. This is the BTAB funding recommendations. These are recommendations that go to a whole bunch of small, mid-sized organizations for business and technical assistance, many of them on East Lake Street, in Cedar Riverside, and on the near north side. Item 13 is program income appropriations restricting the use of home and NSP loan payments. Item number 14 is a Livable Communities Award to City of Lakes Land Trust for their perpetual affordability program. Item number 15 are grants from 2023 from DEED for projects throughout the city, and 16 is the environmental grant funding round from Hennepin County. There are probably 20 projects throughout the city where projects are getting funding from various sources. Item 17 is allowing or agreeing that Hennepin County will help fund the Whittier Community Housing Project at 2609 Blaisdell. Item 18 is approval for the county to do a similar thing at Oakland Square, Talmadge Green. Item 19 are making some very small modifications to the NOAA Preservation Fund. Item 20 is a rezoning, and item 21 is a forgivable loan for the Indigenous Peoples Task Force project, the Clyde Bellacourt Urban Indigenous Legacy Initiative at 2313 13th Avenue South. This is a $1 million forgivable loan in South Minneapolis. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions on any of the items reported today.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions at this time.
Madam Chair, I want to add one thing, please.
Sure.
In the next Biz Committee, there are 2 items of note. The first thing is we're going to have a conversation about opening Lake Street at Kmart and the community participation process that will come as a result of that. This is an intersection with at least 4 council members and maybe 6 in the immediate area, and we're going to be really leaning in on you to try to give some direction as to how the citizen engagement should work, and staff are going to make a presentation. And then we will have 60 minutes of question and answer regarding the rent stabilization staff report. That is a hard 60-minute Q&A, and one council member did submit a bunch of questions. I want to thank her for doing that, and those questions will be answered first. I will note 2 council members on the committee deferred their time in order to allow those not on the committee to be able to ask their questions, and we're really appreciative of that graciousness, and we want to take those questions first and appreciate that you took the time to put them down in writing. Happy to answer questions on that offline as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for your organization of what was a really thorough meeting and skills in making sure everybody felt like they had a chance to be heard. Next is our Policy and Government Oversight Committee, chaired by Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Policy and Government Oversight Committee is bringing forward 22 items for approval. 1 is passage of an ordinance related to appointed position in the Health Department, Director of Health Operations. 2 is passage of an ordinance related to appointed position in the City Clerk's Office, Deputy Director of Elections and Voter Services. 3 is authorizing collective bargaining agreement, AFSCME Water Unit, 2023 through 2025. 4 is authorizing collective bargaining agreement, Minneapolis Building Trades Unit, 2022 through 2025. 5 is approving Capital Long Range Improvement Committee appointments. 6 is accepting a bid for high-speed overhead door replacement project. 7 is accepting a bid for Lindell Avenue North pedestrian improvement project. 8 is accepting a bid for 37th Avenue Northeast Road construction project. 9 is authorizing contract amendment with Black & Veatch Corporation for design and construction engineering services for the 10th Avenue Bridge Water Main River Crossing project. 10 is authorizing a contract amendment with ICE Mortgage Technology, Inc. for loan administration software services. 11 is authorizing a contract amendment with the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension for DNA analysis for Minneapolis Police Department case evidence. 12 is authorizing contract amendment with Fairview Health Services for clinical lab services for the school-based clinics program. 13 is authorizing a contract amendment with Bolton and Mink, Inc. for engineering and design services for the Bryan Avenue South reconstruction project. 14 is authorizing contract with Hennepin County for continued lease of election tabulation, electronic roster, and assistive voting equipment. 15 is approving a legal settlement, Brian Cody versus City of Minneapolis. 16 is approving a legal settlement, Marquise Stewart and Liana Hood versus City of Minneapolis. 17 is approving a legal settlement, Stephen Meldahl versus City of Minneapolis. And I just want to note that we are not giving Stephen Meldahl any money in this settlement. 18 is approving legal settlement, Harold Wright versus City of Minneapolis and State Farm Mutual Automobile Insurance Company. 19 is approving legal settlement, workers' compensation claim from Rommel, Bacon, Brown. 20 is approving a legal settlement, workers' compensation claim of Jamie Karshbaum. 22 is the passage of an ordinance for appointed position in the Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Department, Director of Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. 22 is passage of an ordinance for 3 appointed positions in the Office of Public Service, Deputy City Operations Officers. And I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions. Next is the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since I was not chairing that committee, I'm going to turn it over to our Vice Chair, Councilmember Koski.
Thank you, Councilmember Koski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And we did skip over public health and safety, so I didn't know if...
On my script, I have that next.
Okay, sorry. My apologies. We both looked, Vita and I looked at each other like, ooh, okay. Mixing it up today. All right.
Maybe the script is best.
Well, thank you. The Public Works and Infrastructure Committee will be bringing forward 17 items. Number 1 is project approval for the Mill District Street resurfacing project. Number 2, approval amendments to the Water and Sewer Code. Number 3, authorizing negotiation of easements for the 2023 Parkway Paving Program and ADA Pedestrian Ramp Program. Number 4, authorizing a cooperative funding agreement with Hennepin County Regional Railroad Authority for the repair of the Martin Sabo Bridge over Hiawatha Avenue. Number 5, authorizing a cooperative agreement with Hennepin County for proposed multimodal improvements along Lake Street and Lagoon Avenue. Number 6, passes of a resolution authorizing concurrence with the Shingle Creek Watershed Jurisdictional Boundary Update. Number 7, approving an appointment to the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Number 8, approving an appointment to the Metro Blue Line Extension LRT Community Advisory Committee. Number 9, authorizing joint powers agreement with the City of Columbia Heights for the 37th Avenue Northeast Street reconstruction project. Number 10, authorizing an agreement with the Hennepin County for the 37th Avenue Northeast Street reconstruction project. Items number 11 through 14 are approving large block event permit applications. Number 11 is the Cinco de Mayo block event. That's going to be held on May 14th, 2023. Number 12 is Art World to be held May 19th through the 21st of 2023. Number 13 is the Warehouse District Live to be held all weekends from May 26th through October 29th, 2023. Number 14 is the Edina Art Fair to be held June 2nd through the 4th of 2023. Number 15, authorizing permanent and temporary easements for 15th Street Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Program or project. Number 16, accepting a grant from the Board of Soil and Water Resources to construct green infrastructure improvements. And number 17, adopting the 2023 to 2025 Minneapolis Vision Zero Action Plan. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Next on my script, though, going back one on the agenda, sorry about that, Councilmember Vita, we have the Public Health and Safety Committee report.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Public Health and Safety Committee is bringing forward 5 items. Item 1 is accepting a Justice Assistance Grant from Hennepin County to support the Police Department and the City Attorney's Office initiatives. Item 2 is authorizing the submission of a grant application to the U.S. Department of Justice to hire 10 additional police officers over 3 years. Item 3 is the passage of a resolution approving changes to the public art policies and procedures. Item 4 is authorizing an agreement with the Health Career Connection to host a public health intern in the Health Department. And item 5 is approving appointments to the Community Commission on Police Oversight. I'll stand for any questions on these items.
Thank you. And last but not least is Audit Committee, and I've asked Councilmember Payne to give that report.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. The Audit Committee took up 4 items of business. Item 1 was receiving and filing the 2023 Enterprise Risk Assessment Report. Item 2 was approving the 2023 Risk-Based Enterprise Audit Plan. Item 3 was approving the 2023 Risk-Based Community Safety Audit Plan. And item 4 was receiving and filing an updated report from the Office of the City Auditor's Work in Progress. And I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Not seeing any. With that, we've concluded all business to become before committee today. And hearing no objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.